Welcome to Pure Happiness Coffee. Pure Happiness Coffee is a poem, an artwork, and a community dedicated to becoming better stewards of our world's favorite beverage. Each episode of Pure Happiness is a short glimpse into one individual's coffee journey, a journey that, finally, connects us all. Like most coffee heads, when I travel, the first thing I do is look up the best cafes. How I find them, I don't know exactly. It's a mixture of intuition, reading travel guides, and the internet, along with asking a lot of questions to people of good trusted sense and authority prior to traveling. What I do know is that a good cafe is always completely apprehended as good all at once, when a harmonious set of qualities all add up to something transcending the monoculture that today pervades the world with the dreary similitude of a hockey puck plucked out of plastic by a machine. That sense of the cafe's quality I might call beauty. Before even entering Coffeewerk Press in Galway on the west coast of Ireland, one very rapidly suspects such an experience is on the horizon. Indeed, its unassumingly narrow facade rising from the brick path of Quay Street washed white with yellow trim and black type immediately catches the eye, but not overbearingly, softly but with intention. It stands out without being boisterous about it. Episode 8, Coffeewerk Press. In April of 2022, my brother and I serendipitously found ourselves both on two different British Isles. He on a tour of Scotch distilleries and the northern reaches of Scotland, and me in England to present an experimental poetics video at the University of Cambridge. Now, my dad's matrilineal line was fifth-generation Californian Irish, having settled in Death Valley in the mid-19th century, but that's another story entirely. So there was a certain imperative that we visit Ireland given this opportunity. And so we did. After visiting a number of wonderful shops in Dublin, we found ourselves in Galway, primarily to go south and visit the cliffs of Moher and the Burns, keeping in mind that I knew of a place I had seen on the internet that I really wanted to visit, Coffeewerk Press. Indeed, how I discovered the shop was through another coffee Instagrammer, Filter Coffee Fiend, who I realized lived on the west coast of Ireland. So, having seen that he had impeccable taste, I reached out and asked for some recommendations. I recommend this strategy to anyone looking for advice. While I didn't actually get to visit this coffee fiend while I was in Ireland, and I do hope that one day we do meet, I treasure this interaction deeply, as it is the kind of community that I often find around coffee's periphery. So it is to you, coffee fiend, that I dedicate this podcast. In the last episode, I opened the question of taste, what I called the hard problem of taste, to refer to the many different ways that we taste and evaluate coffee. I don't think it's an accident that the word taste is used for our literal sensory experience of substances in our mouths and our experiences of art and culture, that is, to describe our aesthetic sense and our sense of taste. In coffee, I believe, is a great and complicated way to talk about taste, because inherent to the coffee world are many, many ideas of taste in both valences of the word. I don't have time to solve the hard question of taste today, but I do want to present a quick, even further afield detour on the nature of beauty, according to none other than James Joyce's Stephen Dedalus in The Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. To frame this, I will say that Portrait of the Artist is a significant modernist novel published in 1916 by James Joyce that tracks the emergent artistic and poetic thinking of one Stephen Dedalus in late 19th and early 20th century Ireland, as Stephen works through thinking an original thought about aesthetics and poetry. I came to this text for this podcast, and not to say it wasn't an important text for me, because at one point in my life it was, but in this case, I knew I wanted to talk about the Cliffs of Moher, and James Joyce is an Irish author, and so I Googled the Cliffs of Moher and James Joyce, thinking he must have somewhere written about these monstrous towering cliffs lining the western limit of Ireland, and of course he has. So in this scene where Joyce writes about the Cliffs of Moher, Stephen has arrived at the dean's office of the Jesuit school he is attending to find the dean starting a fire. They immediately become involved in a conversation about art, with the dean explaining that lighting a fire is a practical art, that Stephen, who is famously always spaced out with his head in the impractical poetic clouds, really ought to learn something about. The dean warns Stephen about his queries into the nature of art and beauty thusly, and not without a little condescension. "These questions are very profound, Mr. Dedalus. It is like looking down from the Cliffs of Moher into the depths. Many go down into the depths and never come up. Only the trained diver can go down into those depths and explore them and come to the surface again." Stephen responds to the dean by extending the hint of a suicidal metaphor latent in his phrasing. Anyone who dives off the Cliffs of Moher is sure to perish. So the best one can do, the dean seems to be saying, is to imagine what lies below. For Stephen, just that simple imagining is not enough. One simply speculating from above about what lies below would be bound by that limited perspective. So therefore, in a sense, one would be therefore lying to his audience. For Stephen, this kind of pure speculation, that is, an autonomous observer looking down on the surface of the ocean and speculating on what is below, is not what art is. Rather, art, he says, comes from understanding and trying to, quote, slowly and humbly and constantly express, to press out again from the gross earth or what it brings forth, from sound and shape and color, which are the prison gates of the soul. In other words, which are our own human material limits in perception. To bring out an image of the beauty we have come to understand. That is art. To bring forth an image of the beauty we have come to understand. There's a lot in there, and I will let that sit for a moment, but suffice it to say, it is beauty, then, that the artist paints an image of. Beauty that in rhythm poetry brings forth. But what, then, is beauty? Beauty, he suggests, translating Thomas Aquinas, is the mind's experience of wholeness, harmony, and radiance. It's these three things, all together, all at once, that the mind apprehends as beauty: wholeness, harmony, and radiance. While Stephen rejects everyone agreeing on what the beautiful is, as in everyone agreeing that this or that thing is beautiful, he does posit that all people who admire a beautiful object will find in it certain relations between wholeness, harmony, and radiance. That is, certain relations of the sensible. So the experience of the beautiful is a repeated experience of certain relations that he calls wholeness, harmony, and radiance. And I want to suggest this is a fundamental part of taste, and a fundamental part of what we taste when we taste good coffee. When we taste the good, we taste wholeness, harmony, and radiance. When he later reflects on a beautiful poem, Stephen says that it fills him with a soft, liquid joy. I might call that pure happiness. Now, why have I descended into this discourse on the beautiful? Because that's what Coffeewerk and Press is to me. Not just a press as in a letter press, but The kind of pressing Stephen Dedalus imagines the artist doing, pressing forth from the understanding of the beautiful an image to share its radiance with the world. I could say many more things directly about this lovely cafe, my experience there, the coffee I drank, and everything else. But all of that to you would be mere speculation. It would be like asking you to stand on the cliffs, looking down on the surface of the ocean, and me telling you that I can explain what's below. That's not my intention here. In this roundabout way, I've elected instead to hopefully trace the outline of the radiant feeling that emerges when I reflect on my visit to this place. That is, I want to give you a radiant image of the beauty I came to understand visiting Coffeewerk Press, one of the best cafes on the planet. And in this process, I've opened up a whole new direction in my ongoing thinking about taste. And certainly, there is more to come about that. I will conclude with a few more sentences from Joyce, writing in the mind of Stephen Dedalus, as he reflects on beautiful poetry. A soft liquid joy, like the noise of many waters, flowed over his memory, and he felt in his heart the soft peace of silent spaces, of fading tenuous sky above the waters, of oceanic silence, of swallows flying through the sea dusk over the flowing waters. A soft liquid joy flowed through the words where the soft, long vowels hurtled noiselessly and fell away, lapping and flowing back and ever shaking the white bells of their waves in mute chime and mute peal and soft, low, swooning cry. And he felt that the augury he had sought in the wheeling, darting birds and in the pale space of sky above him had come forth from his heart like a bird from a turret, quietly and swiftly. April 13th, 2022, Coffeewerk Press. Thank you to Coffeewerk Press for not just an amazing cup, but also for your kind recommendations in Galway. And a very huge thanks to Filter Coffee Fiend, who helped point the way in Dublin and Galway, giving me bearings on the unfamiliar. Ireland has been incredible. It has a unique and passionate coffee culture, including multi-roasters and exciting roasters of their own. Coffeewerk Press unifies a gorgeous design aesthetic with immaculate curation of beans from roasters like 19 Grams Coffee, Passenger Coffee, and they even have their own collaboration with April Coffee out of Copenhagen. The shop itself is a little node of intense and beautiful craft, work, form, and commitment, and entering it felt like being welcomed into a haven of pure happiness. It is unmissable if you find yourself on the west coast of Ireland. My only regret about Galway is not spending more time there. An extraordinary series of cups led us from Galway down through the country, into the Burrens, and across winding village roads past pasture, cow, ruin, and green, tree, and air, cloud, and wind, that opened to Liscannor Bay and the spectacular cliffs of Moher. Sun and wind pummeled our approach to the cliffs as they revealed themselves in their 350-million-year-old glory, dressed in sedimented shale and sandstone, aburst with tens of thousands of gulls, puffins, and razorbills, and towering over the expanse of the Atlantic with stoic beauty and indifferent permanence. 300-million-year-old unconformities at the base of the cliffs indicate ancient rivers have already eroded the cliffs just as they carry away the sediment that would stack these forms 700-plus feet into the sky. Entropic persistence of material transformation is responsible for this jagged rise of sublime geology, and its arches and sea stacks, scolitia and burrow marks are signs of impermanence, even as they manifest to the mind an image of eternity. Eternity is immediately undermined by the precarious mortality one witnesses in an imaginary leap or drop from cliff to shore, terror to rock. Love and coffee have what to do with this. 70-mile-per-hour gusts and spitting rain brutalized our walk back from Hag's Head, named after the mythic witch Mal of Malbay, who chased her obscene desire for Sue Shulaine out to the limits of the island. Love. Thank you for listening.